Thank you very much indeed, Professor Lopez. Ladies and gentlemen, they have selected a pretty appropriate country to come and talk about democracy. As you've recently no doubt noticed that we have been somewhat downgraded in democracy. We probably have a D- at the moment, and that's why I'm the last speaker. But by being last, you also have some privileges. Mr. Chairman told me that because I am the last speaker, I now come from not a developing country like the Philippines, but an underdeveloped country called Thailand. I didn't bring any tanks with me. I wish I did, because there are a lot of great attraction for the tourists, and a lot of people believe that we should be doing this every year because it brings lots of tourists into the country. Now, I've also been told that these lights are not required to save electricity. Now, let me move on with what I'm trying to do. It's called the Rural Development Partnership. It is for a better life, or to eradicate poverty through CSR. You could even call it the privatization of poverty reduction. Now, it is a partnership between a village or a community and a company, or it can be with an institution, a church, a school, a university, or with a family, with a person. We don't have to have just corporate social responsibility. We also need individual social responsibility. Can't leave it all to the corporation. We have to do it ourselves. There are lots of people who don't have companies, but have some extra money, extra time, extra skill, extra heart to help a community or help a village. So let's begin to realize now that it's CSR and others, not just CSR alone, all right? So it's a partnership. It is not boss and servant. It's not Santa Claus and somebody waiting for it. It must be an equal partnership with respect. Otherwise, it won't work. Otherwise, it's not the real CSR. Now, before CSR came along, people were being kind and helping other people. This is not new. It's been done before. But one thing we should notice is that while it's very much appreciated, it's admirable, it is a charitable gesture which addresses the consequence of poverty. They're poor, they need our help. They're poor and sick, they need our help. They're poor and sick and uneducated, they need our help. It's a marvelous gesture, but it is addressing the consequence of poverty, and charity and welfare is not sustainable. Why not? Welfare does not foster new skills. You've just been hearing about education. That's to foster new skills. That's development. That's to breed sustainability. Does not foster new skills, does not empower people, and creates greater dependency. So it's not sustainable. So be careful about welfare. Be careful about all this generosity which cannot be sustained. Let your generosity lead into sustainability. That's what we're going to talk about. Now, our partnership that we're talking about really tries very much to tackle the root cause of poverty rather than just to touch the consequence of poverty. So that's a very, very important element I'd like to get right now. Now, in this approach, let's say a company works with the villages in 3 areas. One very, very important is community empowerment. That is democracy. You can call it institutional development, and the detail I will discuss in a minute. And then let me jump to number 3, and that's economic development or income generation. And because of time constraint, I may not have time, sadly, to cover the social development one, which is health, education, and environment. So these are the 3 things we need to do. Unless we also have institutional development, community empowerment, whatever we do at the village level will not last in the long term. It will disappear like ice cream. It might taste nice while it's rigid, but it won't last. You have to have institutional development down there. It does not have to be government. It can be a totally voluntary thing. It can be done by the business sector, NGO sector. So if you're doing anything in CSR in the community, let there be community empowerment and institutional development for the long term. And the economic side is very important. We need to help people to earn more money. With that extra money, they can then use it to help defray some costs in education, defray some costs in healthcare, defray some costs in other areas. So one day, they will need all the help that they're getting in the social sector. But however, in the short term, the social development is also encouraged as part of CSR. These are the three areas, and I'll go through them. But we need to understand the poor a little bit better and give them a lot more honor than we generally do. What do they do each day? Well, some pick up garbage, some raise chickens, some grow vegetables, some sell food. They're no different to Philippines Airlines that engage in business. They're trying to make a profit. They're trying to make a profit. However, that does not happen very, very often, and they remain poor. And they remain poor for two very simple reasons. They lack business skills, and they cannot have access to credit. Let me remind you once again, the poor remain in poverty in the long term because they lack business skills and they lack credit at normal market rates. You just heard educational institution going up and IFC even saying, we'll lend you some credit. Not before any collateral was even shown. But the poor, no, they have no collateral and they don't have any loan. So we also have to make access to credit as a human right for people living in poverty. Unfortunately, I don't have all that time to talk about it, but unless we address the issue that the poor are engaged in business and the only road out of poverty is through business, not through charity, not through praying. In Thailand, we don't have a God because we had our prime minister before. So we believe we have to help ourselves as much as possible. All right, the poor continue to be poor because they lack these two things. Now, if we want to help them, we have to help them out in these two things. Not give them welfare, but how do we do it? Through the business sector. These two problems can be reduced or even eliminated with the help of the business sector. I think that we could even close down the United Nations, Asian Development Bank, World Bank even. But if we could get the business sector to be brought in by the government, given tax incentives, they are the ones that are going to get our people out of poverty. The UN, what are they going to do? They're nice people, of course. And the Asian Development Bank's be looking more and more like a museum than ever. We have to be realistic. I'm not trying to win friends and influence people, as you can see. But I'm just trying to be honest that every government now has to realize we have to bring in businesses, big and small, to do CSR. It's just like sex, size doesn't matter. Please remember that. Every company that is profitable can be and must be engaged in CSR. It is not measured by the money. It is measured by something else. We'll get there in a minute. So the business sector must be brought in, given tax incentives, and do everything to help us out of poverty. Infrastructure is not the answer. Now, what we need to do is turn the poor into very simple barefoot entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, with the help of business people. Now, if you wouldn't mind turning those airline runway lights out, then you could see what's behind. I don't need to be seen. Partly heard would be fine. So those controlling the lights, you can turn that off and just put the light, the projector back there, and you'll see more clearly. Now, what can companies do? You'll notice cash is right at the bottom line. It's knowledge and skill. Take a look at the Ford Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation. What have we heard from the Rockefellers and the Fords lately? They were given lots of money by their parents. But Bill Gates was not given money. He was given business skill and a brain by his father. That's what's all about. So the most important thing in CSR is knowledge and skills. You can call it education if you like. Knowledge and skills, connections and markets, in-kind donations, and some cash and some staff time. That's in order of importance. Cash is good, but it's not the most important thing. Now, the partnership, how does it begin? Let's assume you've agreed. Now, we work as a group of an NGO that goes to many, many hundreds of companies in Thailand, enticing them to participate in this wonderful thing. We don't say what you get out of it in terms